I'm Julia, and I want you to do an exercise with me. If you will, please close your eyes and picture your favorite public park. Picture the grass, the trees, the water if there's water. Are the daffodils blooming? Are there creatures there with you? How do you feel in this space? Now, propel your park 300 feet into the sky and leave behind every detail that your glorious mind just invented. Those trees, the people, the ground beneath your feet. What do you have left? That's right, air. Clean, free, delicious public air. You can open your eyes now. This absurd imaginary leap is what led artist Amy Balkin to create this work called Public Smog. For this project, the artist legally purchases pieces of the Earth's atmosphere via carbon credits to establish a public park over the city of Los Angeles. The size of the park changes depending on prevailing winds, and it's open to the public until her credits expire. At first glance, this might appear a useless declaration of creative autonomy, a "but is it art" moment that operates purely within the boundless sphere of possibility that is contemporary art. However, I'd like to challenge this, to offer an alternative reading of this space as a critical, political, and productive expansion of art into the social arena. As context, my concentration at Gallatin is art in the Anthropocene. For those of you who don't know, the Anthropocene is the geological era that we're currently in, preceded for tens of thousands of years by the Holocene, and for millions of years before that by the Pleistocene. Now, what sets this era apart is the anthro, the fact that humans now, since the Industrial Revolution and epitomized by global warming, have more influence on the state of our entire planet than does any other natural factor. Whether or not this shift is recognized universally, as you can imagine, it isn't, the Anthropocene is a vital rhetorical move with which to reorient the way we think about the crisis of climate change, its social, political, and ecological contingencies, and how we need to act accordingly. What's embedded in this Anthropocene is an enormous shift in human agency, often negatively framed as this destructive power over a once Eden of sorts, the transformation of a habitable, luscious natural condition into something degraded and in need of protection. However, what this anthro also implies is the human potential to meaningfully respond. Because whether or not it was our intention, humanity has decided to forge a much more precarious and therefore intimate entanglement with the life systems that support us. Historically, artists have been working off the natural environment for centuries, but it wasn't until the late 1960s that American artists began to really engage with land that had until then been admired at an aesthetic distance. Acknowledging the harmful reduction of this work to a quick series of slides, we have land art, like Walter de Maria's lightning fields and Nancy Holt's sun tunnels. These works framed natural forces and human estrangement from these forces, but often in a provisional and sometimes touristic way. Then there are works like Alan Sonfist's Time Landscape and Mel Chin's Revival Fields. These pieces were projects that showed what the land was and is capable of being, sustainable in and of themselves, but here all possibility is confined to these discrete spaces. Similarly, there are these in-gallery ecosystems, like the Harrisons' Survival Pieces and Hans Hacke's Rhine Water Purification Plant. These artists clearly admired living systems, but because they exhibited them in the white cube, they are bracketed off from human reality. These works range from 1965 to 1998. Sonfist's Time Landscape is still alive today on Houston and LaGuardia, and I encourage a visit. All were North American, most were men, all were pioneer environmental artists who introduced our relationship to the land as a matter of artistic debate. However, I would argue that despite their good intentions, these artists reified an attitude towards the natural environment that has proven in many ways harmful, either by demarcating spaces where nature is allowed to occur, not unlike a national park, or constructing permanent monuments to forces that relish in flux, by sterilizing or reducing irreducibly complex systems, or by using energy with the same irreverence as industry, by positing nature as something outside of culture. In this late stage of the Anthropocene, this nature-culture paradigm cannot possibly hold true. That's because it's predicated on the earth as a fixed, stable object. When anybody who has witnessed the price of avocados escalate because of the California drought, or walked up their stairs in the dark after Hurricane Sandy know, the earth has in fact become a very real and very active agent. This is a screenshot from a 30-minute long video piece by Regina Jose Galindo titled Tierra. In it, the artist stands in a field while a bulldozer scrapes away the earth around her, revealing her naked body, leaving it nothing but an island. While it's possible to trace this work in the trajectory of, say, Robert Smithson, here both demonstrating the threat of an uncomfortable amount of soil, Galindo makes a significant break from land art, not only by her being a brown woman, but with the assertion of the body. Her performance and her narration recount the Guatemalan genocide, the digging of mass graves, and the pillaging of indigenous land and people. Galindo's deeply embodied approach to the earth suggests that social conditions and environmental conditions are indivisible, that this nature-culture paradigm produces victims. This is the heart of environmental justice movements, this recent notch in the Anthropocene that locates where social and ecological systems overlap, where human rights and the rights of nature collide. This work, however vitally important, is really difficult to do when these connections are purposely obscured by, say, greenwashing, or are situated elsewhere in a landfill, oceans and oceans away. However, artists are in this privileged position to reveal these connections, these truths, no matter how difficult or complicated or uncomfortable they may be, without being bound by scientific objectivity, or standard modes of behavior, for that matter. They have the ability to help shape new discourses. Take, for example, Natalie Janko. She's an artist, a professor, and impossibly well-pedigreed engineer/scientist who operates an environmental health clinic just blocks away at NYU's Barney Building. She uses the framework of a walk-in health clinic, but shifts the focus from internal biology to shared environmental health. Her assumption is that we know, and we have known, everything we need to know about global warming for a while now. But affecting real change is about changing who produces the evidence, who interprets it, how it's represented, where, and why. One of her prescriptions looks like this. It's an ag bag. It's a planter made out of really durable Tyvek that hangs like a saddlebag over your apartment window, banister, any railing really, customizable to fit. The plants hang from either side, nourished by these little gel beads that help retain moisture in a totally closed system. It's a really cost and energy and space efficient model designed for use throughout the city as a way to reconnect us to living systems, as an alternative method of urban agriculture, to improve air quality, to beautify existing structures, because they're totally beautiful. She installed a bunch this past winter at the Ravenwoods housing complex in Long Island City. It's a slice of the city they call Asthma Alley for the high prevalence of respiratory conditions. Janko uses her leverage as an artist and a professor to combat what she calls the crisis of agency. She states, art can be anything we need it to be. And right now, in our contemporary moment, there's a need to explore this crisis of agency. What to do, not just as a gesture, but to really rethink our relationship to living systems. That's what this work is doing. Amy Balkin invites us to expand our idea of the environment to include the atmosphere, while at the same time pointing to the absurdity of the financialization of the natural world. Galindo ties a body to the environment to underline the violence inherent in global power relations of the Anthropocene. And Janko reclaims the human potential to interact with living systems, creatively, ecologically, in ways not prescribed by larger authorities. This is not environmental art. What these women are doing is challenging the historical misconception of nature as extricable from the needs, desires, and agencies and urgencies of man. Okay, do you remember how you felt in your public park? Was it something like that first tasty breath of fresh air after a long subway ride? Of remembering what air is? This is the intimacy I was talking about. Because I think there's something to say for art that can take you there. And if these types of exercises, these leaps of the imagination, are interesting and exciting and rewarding for you, I urge you to consider the Anthropocene as not only a damaged and frightening system, but moreover a place of possibility, and art as a vehicle to take you there. Thank you.